to Tabula Rasa, bitches!
Hello!
Hello!
My name is Allie.
And I'm Nick.
And welcome to Season 1, Episode 6 of Tabula Rasa, bitches! We're so glad you're here.
In Tabula Rasa, bitches, you'll listen as two decades-long friends jump back into the world of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and relive the show that brought them close together and taught them so many of the values they still cherish today. As always, we are going to give our spoiler warning. We are going to be discussing this episode, spoilers and all. So if you haven't watched and you don't want to hear any spoilers, go ahead and go watch this great episode and come back. We will be waiting for you.
Yeah. Each episode of Tabula Rasa, bitches, will dive into an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and discuss the lessons that can be learned from our favorite Sunnydale warriors and the supernatural creatures they use their talents and friendship to overcome. If you are wondering about our name, Tabula Rasa, bitches, well, then you must not have listened to our first episode. So what are you doing? Go back and listen to that, and then come and join us for Season 1, Episode 6, The Pack.
And what an episode it is, Allie. I can jump into the episode summary. I'm going to give a little taste, though. This episode is not my favorite, Allie. This episode is not my favorite.
I'm so excited to talk with you about it because I actually love this episode.
And maybe hearing your thoughts will help me relate to this in a different way. But I look forward to our robust discussion.
Yeah, me too. So get us rolling with that summary.
All right. So Buffy and the gang are on a school trip to the zoo when Xander sneaks into the new hyena exhibit to help a boy that is being picked on by 4 bullies. Inside the exhibit, Xander and the 4 are infected by the spirit of the hyenas and begin to act strangely. Buffy suspects something is wrong when Xander starts being mean to Willow in school the next day, but Giles shrugs it off as teenage angst. Giles is forced to change his mind, however, when the school mascot, a piglet, is eaten. Principal Flutie is also eaten soon after. Buffy, Giles, and Willow lure Xander and his pack of 4 possessed students back to the hyena cage, and after a run-in with the hyena's keeper, manage to restore Xander and the others back to normal. And before we jump into our notes, we're going to give a shout-out to the Complete Buffy episode guide, from which I adapted this summary. What a crew of brilliant people.
Yes. Yeah. No shade ever in stealing, as long as you give credit.
Absolutely.
So,
Allie, get us started with your notes.
Yeah. So my first reaction to the episode title was, oh, yes. And then I was like, wait, whoops. Thought that was a different episode. And I was like, wait, but also, hell yes. Because I think it's very different and interesting. And I like the way that it definitely strong metaphor happening in this episode for sure. I don't know. I always thought it was kind of fun.
I look forward to hearing more about the metaphors you found because I find this episode boring and lacking character development. But what do I know?
Interesting.
I will say, though, did not love this episode, but I do love zoos. I love zoos a lot. So when this episode starts off at a zoo, that's good stuff for me. I love zoos.
Zoos are fantastic.
I love zoos.
And I love that zoos are improving their enclosures and stuff like that. I'm not saying that zoos are without fault because there are definitely some icky ones out there. But yeah, I enjoy them.
We know that Sunnydale Zoo is crushing it above all of them. I have a question for you, but it sounds like you have a note.
It did look like it had some nice enclosures. That hyena area was pretty dope. I was just going to say I like Xander and Willow come in talking about they just saw zebras having sex. And Willow says, it was like the Heimlich with stripes.
Willow, you are a doll. I would die for you. My question for you is, our Scoobies are on a school field trip here at the zoo. What was the coolest field trip you ever went on?
Coolest. I think it would have to be in high school with marching band when we went to, well, I guess I was part of wind ensemble and marching band, but we went to Disney and we got to march right down Well, for those of you who saw Disney when the big blue magic hat was there, we walked right down that street towards the big hat.
Neato.
So it was just really cool. And also, as part of the wind ensemble, our holding area before we went onto the stage to perform was their prop house. So I got to see like the hyenas from Lion King and like the baby from Dinosaurs. I just thought that was really cool. Definitely took pictures in there, even though we weren't supposed to. So that was just like a really great trip. And
Disney's going to hear, Allie. Disney's going to hear that you just confessed that, and they're going to find you.
I feel like the statute of limitations has passed.
You're probably right.
I think so. I think they have better things to do with their time, but I don't know. I don't know your life, Disney. Yeah, and the rest, so we basically, like, the first day was performances, and the rest of the time was all park.
Love that.
And the first day, it was pouring down rain. We were supposed to go to the water park, but ended up at Epcot instead. And it was that kind of pouring rain where, like, this isn't stopping, so I'm just going to commit to being wet.
Oh, yeah.
So that was just, like, us playing in the rain. I was with all the guys because Caitlin couldn't make it to the trip. And we deemed ourselves the Excitement Squad. And we rode every little ride that Epcot had to offer, but we would treat it like it was a big roller coaster. So it would be like the tiniest bump, and we'd be like, woo! It was the best day. Sometimes hanging out with guys is so much fun. So shout out to my loves, Matt, David, Todd, Tim, Nick Sheeran. Love you all. Hope you're all doing
What a crew to go to a theme park with. I'm happy for you.
Thanks. I want to do it again sometime. I love amusement parks, but with COVID, I've been like, that is one of the least places I think is hygienic at this
Yeah,
time.
everybody's screaming in each other's faces. Probably not ideal for a communicable airborne disease, right?
True. What about you? What's the coolest trip you've ever been on? School trip you've ever been on?
New York, for sure. Yeah, we, it's part of musical theater. We had a musical theater class. That's strange for high school. Sometimes I forget about that, Allie. We had that option at our high school. We went to New York. We got to take some classes with Broadway actors. We got to see a bunch of Broadway shows, walk around New York. It was fun. It was a good time.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was a good time.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay, thanks for indulging me.
Absolutely.
The first note I have is that, the episode starts off, the crew of 4 who later become possessed or whatever by the hyena spirits start off giving Buffy some shit. And I wrote down that for being a group of bitches, they don't seem super cool themselves.
I had that thought too. It kind of felt like, well, everybody's above somebody else, I guess.
Yeah.
But it definitely felt like, who are these people? Because they're not Cordelia's crew. But I guess they're cooler than Buffy, but probably less cool than Cordelia's crew. I guess they're
higher up on the food chain, but not super high up
and
themselves.
I guess she just like really marked herself early being with Xander and Willow. Because like she hasn't been at school that long. And she's like already deemed a loser. I guess kids make up their minds really quickly. I don't know.
Who knows? Their insults are also not amazing. They're looking at the kid in front of the monkey exhibit or whatever, and the quote I wrote down is one of the bullies says to the kid they're making fun of, "Does somebody have a camera? What push?" And they say that. They say the emote I typed out is "what push," and I wrote "LOL what?" Like, what is that?
I think
that's not a good insult.
I think the line that precedes that, though, isn't it something like, "Oh, it's a family reunion. Does somebody have a camera?"
Yeah, which is also not a good insult. That's not.
Yeah. I guess comparing you to a monkey, which it's like accurate.
And monkeys are cool.
Yeah.
Why?
But you know what? Like,
fine.
I'm the person who doesn't cave to peer pressure a lot, though. Like when people would say, "Do it, you won't, no balls." I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I won't do it. Good job." So I guess it's like we won't get that because I don't know. You'd have to do something more deep to insult one of us.
Yeah, we're not insulted by it. We're like, yeah, the monkey is cool. We are related to the monkey.
Right.
It is kind of a family reunion.
Yeah.
What do you super? Yeah. Okay, I see what you're saying.
But yeah, they're Neanderthals. And yeah, my first note is, Buff, because they're making fun of Buffy. Real talk, pack mentality is such a thing. Because
it is.
I want to say there's even more than the 4 because there's at least 3 guys and 2 girls. So I think it's actually a pack of 5. But one of the girls isn't always there. There's that blonde chick.
Oh.
I want to say I've seen, yes, because there's the girl with the short blonde hair, and then there's the girl with the really short brown hair. So
yeah,
actually,
I didn't realize there were 3 guys. I thought there were only 2. I thought it was a 2 and 2 situation. Yeah, I have a picture right here. Yeah, there's a 2 and 2. Watch this space, friends. Watch this space. We'll see. We'll see. Allie is usually right about these kinds of things, so I'm gonna trust her. I'm gonna trust her.
But it does vary throughout the episode because they do say, like, later with the pig and incident and with, like, Principal Flutie, they say 4 students were seen going into the principal's office.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the whole time.
Well, and your point that the pack mentality, that really is true.
So strong because it really does feel like life and death with those social situations. And it really does feel like, well, it's better to be in and miserable than out and completely alone. So I was lucky enough that I usually had a pretty solid group of friends. I ditched most of the drama in middle school. Middle school was a heinous time. Was just people because everyone's just horrible. And like I said, every day feels like the end of the world.
Absolutely.
And I loved it at the time, but looking back, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What? There's just I definitely appreciate anyone who chooses to be a middle school teacher because that's just horrid.
Service medallions to all of you.
Those are the true heroes. And it is true. Like, you think it's okay because, like, there are things you will do with a group that you just wouldn't do by yourself.
Well, and I remember I remember this even into high school, Allie. There was this crew of theater kids where it was like the cool theater kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there would be people who I'd be buds with. They would just act different around this cool group of kids. I would be like, I thought we were buds, but now you're being mean.
Yep.
In there, what? Yeah, that's the pack mentality, though, ain't it?
Yeah,
Allie?
it's just the trying to fit in and
trying to be cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember when I first started doing shows at Drama Learning Center, I got invited to go to the mall with some of the cool kids. And I remember just like staying really quiet and just kind of going along with like whatever they were saying. I didn't really have any problems with anybody, but I definitely remember thinking like, well, thank God they like me because I would probably never know if they didn't, but they would totally be trashing me behind my back. And it's the worst feeling. It is.
Gross.
It is the worst feeling.
I'm so glad I'm not a teenager anymore.
Ugh.
Yikes.
Yes. Oh my God.
I have another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of one of these scenes, Xander has so the pack, however many they are, brought the kid they were making fun of into the hyena exhibit. Xander chases them, and at the end they all like get possessed or whatever, and they start laughing.
Yeah.
Is it hard? You're an actor.
Mm-hmm.
Is it hard to fake laugh?
I don't think
they are cackling. They're cackling.
They are cackling, but I don't think so. Because especially with something like that, it kind of ends up cycling into itself because you're like, wow, I'm being so ridiculous, and it makes you laugh even more. Also, I don't know, it's just one of those things that you figure out how to do. You kind of have this Rolodex in your head of these are funny things, or, you think of Charlie the Unicorn or Salad Fingers or whatever. And you find ways to make yourself laugh. And also some of it is muscle memory. Like if you force yourself to yawn, you can start feeling sleepy. Or if you force yourself to smile, you start feeling happier. So some of it is like, if I just go with that muscle memory of laughing, it just kind of ends up there. So it doesn't always have to start with the thought and then go with the physicality. Sometimes it can actually go the other way.
Actions can spark feelings, man.
Yeah.
Sage advice for anybody, Allie, it is.
Yeah. Speaking of the actor stuff, the guy who plays Kyle, the lead of the D-bags other than Xander, I looked him up because I was like, he looks really familiar. Is he? Because he kind of sounded like another actor from a TV show. So I looked it up. He has been doing very well for himself. So snaps to him.
Good for
He has
him.
had really consistent IMDb credits, and he's like on real shows and things. And yeah, it's just good for him. But this was actually his first, as far as IMDb goes. I'm sure he was in plenty of stuff before this. This is his first IMDb credit.
Wow. That's pretty neat.
Pretty good
And he did well
start.
here. So maybe this was a launching off point for him. Who knows?
Yeah. What was your next note?
My next note is, okay, so at this point, Xander is infected, but not totally infected, whatever. They're at the bronze.
Mm-hmm.
Buffy and Willow are talking, and then Xander walks in. And then I have a note that Mega Prowl Xander on the prowl.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad about it.
Okay, I have a very similar note of Buffy the Vampire Slayer proving time and time again that confidence is sexy. That is why I think that is the pinpoint of why bad guys are hot, because they've got all that pride, all of that attitude, all of that stuff. And that is just so fucking hot. So when he comes in with no self-consciousness, just owning the room, that's hot. It's so hot.
Yes, Xander. Keep that Xander. Not the like eating people thing or the being mean to your friends, but that confident walk. You keep strutting.
Right. Also, a very fun costume note. Almost the second that I guess the first time we see him after the possession, his clothing has changed to all dark.
It's darker,
it's all dark
right?
colors. Whereas before we're seeing him in like these bright patterns, stuff like that. As soon as we see him with that, and throughout the whole episode, it's the dark colors and like that dark jacket.
I was gonna say my note is that I'm not mad about Xander on the prowl, but I am a little mad about his less fun clothing. But I guess whatever, we'll take what we can get. But that is a very interesting. Yes, the costume people on Buffy really crush it, don't they? I have a note about Buffy's costume later on.
Cool. So clearly the episode is very, in addition to, pack mentality, fitting in, cliques and stuff, also clearly about hormones and like the effect of testosterone. Because we do see we do see the girls, and that kind of factors into the whole like mean girls and packs and stuff like that. But I feel like most of the actions done are from the guys of the group. Yeah, so I had hormones and testosterone in addition to the desire to change to be part of a group, no matter how toxic that change can be. Can you, as a guy, because I know there's just the two of us here, and I don't have, I have testosterone in me, but not to the levels as you do. So can you speak to that change, or do you have any other like reflections of what you saw around you with your peers in high school?
Oh, Allie, that is a really good question. Evil testosterone.
Because there are things that I've heard that factor into why guys suppress emotions and stuff, because like testosterone makes you feel like angry all the time and blah. So you learn to suppress your emotions so you don't like constantly get in fights and things like that.
I would welcome your feedback if you ever. So when I imagine a like teen guy feeling the full effects of testosterone, like, man, hormones are great. That does not conjure up an amazing image for me. It conjures up kind of a smelly image, some of like little toxic, little, I don't know. So I hope that I would have to really reflect on that, Allie. That is a really good question. I think I was always definitely more in tune with my emotions than the average teenage dude. I never felt like kind of another sense that I get from this pack here is this like this feeling to conquer, feeling to like that's like part of the bullying to me, is this need to I don't know,
exert dominance kind of thing.
Exert dominance, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think I ever really felt like that either.
Yeah, that's also just like not really a personality.
What comes to mind for you when you think of this pack mentality in high school?
Oh, in high school. I guess something that comes to mind is one of our close friends, Anna, ended up hanging out with a different group freshman year, and I was like not a fan of those people. But like, it's not like I saw Anna doing anything differently with them. I was just like, well, you'll come back to me eventually, which is exactly what happened, by the way.
We'll let this one work itself out.
This
here.
is going to work itself out. And it did. And, you know, we kept the good eggs and pitched the rest.
That is so funny. There was one time, I think it was sophomore or junior year of high school. I think it was, I don't know, one of the two. We'll see where the story goes. You can cut it out if it ends up being bad. But I think I was starting to try to hang out with another theater crew, and Anna was actually one of the ones who pulled me aside and was like, Nick, if these are not, stop selling out. Stop. You need to, and I still remember that, and I really respect her for doing that.
That's really funny. Good on her. She is very, very aware with things like that.
And she knows her values.
She does.
God damn it, Anna.
She absolutely does. She's a gem.
Okay. So we presented a challenge to Anna to text us last episode. If she hears this, she needs to text us again this episode. I asked for penguin last episode. This episode, she needs to text zebra. We're in the zoo.
There you go. But as far as like, I don't know, I floated. I did so many activities in school. I floated among a lot of different groups. So there was definitely some feeling of detachment of like, wow, I don't really belong any one place. And there was definitely some weird feelings of like, well, I didn't quite feel like I fit in with the theater department because I prioritized shows outside of school because they were better quality and they gave me better roles. So yeah, so it felt weird to like be an actor who wasn't really part of the theater department. And so I wasn't really part of that crew, which in turn left me out of some drama, which was kind of nice. I like to observe and hear about drama, but I don't like to be part of it. I think that's a very distinct difference. I mean, we didn't have, at least in my classes and in the areas, we didn't really have a ton of people where I was observing bullying. I felt really bad every standardized test when they would also tack on that like bullying survey, because like, I'm sure there is bullying that needs to be called out, but I was not personally observing it. But I was like, it's high school. I guarantee it's happening.
Right. Yeah. I think we did go to a mostly friendly high school overall.
Yeah, overall, especially compared with others in the county.
I wrote down one of my next notes is, so Buffy's in the library working out with Giles or whatever. One of these moves that she does is super dope. She jumps up and kicks and hits his hand with both feet. And I don't know. I just felt like that move needed some kudos because that was pretty dope.
Yes, snaps to that. I have my next note is I feel like we might have been the last generation to actually play dodgeball in school. Or at least at aftercare. I know we played it at aftercare.
Yeah, and even our generation, we did not play it during school. But yeah, it was an aftercare thing.
Yeah, but we definitely did play it.
I saw a few times during this. I think the rules around dodgeball changed by the time we came along. Allie, I distinctly remember if you threw a ball and they caught it, you were out.
Correct.
They did not do that. While this one was just throw the balls you want, catch all the balls you want, but you only get out if you get hit.
Yeah, if you caught it, they were out, and you got to bring in one of your players.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
So, I don't know. I feel like there may have been, I don't know, for the purpose of the filming, they may have changed some things. And, like, maybe they didn't want, it might have had to do with the flow of the scene. Like, they didn't want too many people walking off, or, I don't know. There may have been some of that
little dose of nostalgia for us all, though. Who doesn't remember being terrified when the dodgeball game started?
I mean, we also had rules about, like, you know, chest and below. I said the real line here where we see like Xander's definitely different is when he hits Willow.
She just looks so hurt, doesn't she?
And just like baffled. And yeah, I love next when she calls him out on it afterwards. She doesn't let time pass. She goes like, what the heck was that? And I have a note of where the fuck is the teacher? But then we see him after and he says, God, this game is brutal. I love it. And you're like, oh, okay, so he's a dick and loves watching kids torture each other. Okay,
you're a bad person.
Yeah, because the pack gangs up on that little guy.
So, and I was curious about that. So while I was doing my usual Googling for the show, I found out that that was they did that. Well, of course they did it intentionally, but apparently it's emblematic of hyenas. They were going for the symbolism that hyenas in the wild will not go for the strongest predator around, which Buffy was the only remaining team member. They'll instead pick off the weak, which was
That makes sense.
their member. And that was one of those, I don't like this episode. You are helping me relate to it more with this talk about the pack and this this pull that we feel in high school. That helps me relate to a little bit more. But this one, this piece too, I was like, okay, never mind. This isn't just a stupid episode. I see a little bit more of this.
Well, I do have a note there somewhere of like, I'm curious how biologically accurate what they're talking about is. Because I do like the idea that they put that thought into it, because I didn't do my Googling like you did. So that's cool that they did it that way. I like to think that a smart show like this would do that thing. Oh, a note I skipped over when they're in the hyena place at the beginning of the episode, and they talk about the like hyenas will learn your name and call it at night to lure you away from the pack.
I didn't look that up, but I did want to look up, like, obviously hyenas don't learn your name, but I made a note for myself to follow up on that. Like, are hyenas particularly smart predators? Do they have
I think they are.
Are they?
Yeah, relatively, because I think they're in the same realm of dogs. Like, yeah, they're not like they're not like octopuses or anything. They're not like that level of smart, but like they're not like dumb.
Yeah. No, but the idea of a predator saying that would make
horrifying.
Me go crazy and leave my house and wonder, and then when I leave my house, they can descend upon me. Or something.
Yeah, I thought that was terrifying. So Xander has an alpha male inside of him because he kind of becomes part of the group, and then he's kind of the leader. He
leads the group.
Yeah, like he kind of lets Kyle feel like he's in charge, but they really are deferring to Xander, which is very interesting because so clearly that's in there, and he's capable of some cruel things when he's letting that dominate. Because I think we all have some not fantastic qualities inside of us, but it's like how we choose to act or not act on those things that makes us who we are. But it's like when Xander's acting on instinct, there's some not great stuff that happens.
Well, and we'll see that later too. His leadership capabilities when there is demonic energy involved. I don't want to say anything too much more and give out spoilers, but I wonder if we're thinking of the same thing, Allie. It is interesting to think about how I don't know. That is a theme that will come up later on.
I'm now thinking of a couple different instances where we see, where we do end up seeing some of that like mature leader side. Of course, it's hard to be a leader when you're next to Buffy. You may think you're a leader, and then you see Buffy. I love a slow group walk. Love it. A dramatic slow walk. Love. Buffy calls them the Dode Patrol, and I was like, "What the fuck is Dode?" So I looked it up, and I did find it means socially inept or stupid. So
I didn't know that either.
Maybe that was like 90s slang. I have no idea. Or a carryover from 80s slang that we missed by the time like early 2000s. I don't know. I didn't know that one.
I was moved by this exchange between Buffy and Willow. Buffy says to Willow, "I think there's something wrong with him." And Willow says, "Or maybe there's something wrong with me." And my notes accompanying that is in all caps. "No, Willow.
I know.
You're perfect. God damn it. You're such a good friend. You help with math and stuff."
Yeah, that was such a sad exchange. Yeah.
Poor Willow.
I know.
Stunning. I'm glad that it gets cleared up later on.
Absolutely. And it is sad. I can see how difficult that must be on Buffy's part. Like, I'm not trying to pull Xander away from her. Like, she's clearly not interested in Xander. But it's so hard to, like, get blamed for it, but also feel it's sort of justified. Oh, it's just so hard. I do have a funny quote when Buffy goes to Giles to talk about, like, I think something's, like, actually going on here, not just teenage.
I have one too. I wonder if it's the same one.
It might be. It's terrible. He's turned into a 16-year-old boy. Of course you'll have to kill him.
Giles, you are such a bitch. I love
I know,
you.
such sass. But it is like low key some boys will be boys shit.
So there's that sense in this episode. There's Giles has another quote in that scene. Testosterone is a great equalizer. It turns all men into morons, which is funny. Also gets kind of at this idea to this boys will be boys. No, testosterone does not turn anybody into morons. We are perfectly capable of not being mean to people.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's like blaming crazy women on like their periods. Now, I'm not saying that mood swings aren't a thing because they hundo PR. And there are times in your life where you don't have the self-awareness, and some people never develop the self-awareness to recognize when that mood is your own versus not your own. I didn't always, like high school, I did not have that as a period symptom. I would get a little weepy during Glee, and then I would be like, oh, I'm going to start my period tomorrow. And sure enough, I did. It happened several weeks in a row, or several months in a row. It was very odd. I would cry during Glee and then think like, wow, that was weird. And then I'd start my period the next day. But then I changed up my birth control in college, and I started having them, not just being weepy, but sometimes the like weird giggly, which is actually scarier than the depressed mood swing.
Yeah, I bet.
Because and like the anger or like the sensitivity, it's very, very odd. And I'm lucky to be a pretty self-aware person. So I know, oh, this isn't me feeling this. This is my period making me feel this. But I can see where you might act out of testosterone fueled rage or whatever. And it's not about that not being okay. It's about like Giles could have then sat him down and been like, I know this is what's going on, but your behavior is not acceptable.
Right. Yeah. The solution as a much older man is not to be like, well, oh, well, shrug. This is what they do.
We were all jerks
in
high school.
Take some action.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's so much of things just need to be a conversation. Like it's not, I don't know. Or like, I remember one of our teachers had to talk to one of the classes because like the boys weren't showering. And
Ew,
I don't know if you remember this in
dude.
middle school. There was a time when I want to say it was when we were in 7th grade, and we would come into health class and it would just reek. And we said something to our teacher, and she's like, I know, I'm going to have a talk with my 6th graders.
Miss Sika.
I know, Miss Sika was the best. And she was like, I'm going to have a talk with the 6th graders. I know. Because you stink. And they don't get that you like showering is not an optional thing anymore.
Right.
Anywho.
I wrote down just a note for myself that this is not the first time, and it will not be the last time, that Buffy notices something, says something's up, somebody back to her is like, no, it's fine, and then it is indeed something. She did the same thing with Teacher's Pet. Yeah. She was like, there's something wrong with them, and they were like, no, they're just...
You're right. Ooh, some Giles gaslighting. I did have this note of Giles. You fought a human-sized praying mantis, and you're laughing at turning into a hyena? Rude.
That's not the strangest thing you've seen now,
Rude.
Giles. Come on. Yeah.
Also, very interesting, and I have a feeling this is one of the scenes that you have a problem with, so I'm interested to talk about it. Xander able to sneak up on Buffy.
So, okay. Yes. Let's revisit the sexual assault that either happens or is about to happen in that scene. We'll put that on a shelf and come back to it because, man, that's problematic. But yeah, this thing Giles says later on too, I feel like it's not super well established that this being possessed by hyenas also gives them supernatural abilities, apparently.
It does a bit. It does. There is definitely some, well, because the zookeeper dude or the hyena enclosure dude, he wanted it because it endows you with some power.
But it wasn't clear to me that, like, as I was watching,
it is actually said in the episode.
When Giles later on says, oh, one of them is nearly as strong as you, let alone in a pack.
Right.
I remember being like, when did we discover that they were...
I think it's kind of this scene. And also the fact that they're able to, like, rip at flesh without tools.
Yeah, I don't know. It just,
they're able to eat a human person and a pig without tools.
Could have used a little bit more of a link here, and it seems like we learn new things about the villains we fight. We learn they have like abilities or whatever, but we're not surprised by them. When he was able to sneak up on Buffy, I was like, oh, okay, I guess. All right.
Yeah. Well, and I think
guess that's what we're doing
their
now.
powers also grew as the hyena took over them more and more. So I
Yeah.
think we see a little more of it as we go through the episode. And yeah, just the fact that
Yeah.
he's able to pin her. She's able to push him off, but it's
Yeah.
not easily. She has to fight it.
Yeah, she does.
And I have this awful quote that I wrote down. The more I scare you, the better you smell.
Oh.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, let's
Xander
talk about
sucks.
thoughts on this sexual assault, because it is absolutely sexual assault.
I feel like this is one of those times where if this were being taped today, it would be. I think that there are ways to get at the same energy of what they're saying, like this predator instinct that Xander is being overcome by.
Mhm.
I think nowadays, like they would have taped this in a way that still would have been clear, but not what like
Mhm.
the way it's shown now. It could be pretty triggering for somebody.
Absolutely. Oh
to
yeah.
watch this. I think that nowadays, like this may be one of those few times where this piece just didn't age super well. What do you think?
Yeah. So I have a few thoughts on it, because yeah, it was definitely kind of hard to watch. And I think we kind of have to treat it in a larger context with Buffy of the things that they do don't run as deep, because otherwise every episode is a trauma level event.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. That's a good reminder
we
here
did
too.
mention that. So, because my first thought was going to, even though she knows that he's possessed by a hyena and not himself, it is still her friend's face and voice doing those things. And I don't know how comfortable I would be afterwards with this friend. I can imagine that adjustment period. Even again, knowing in your head, this is not him. This is not him. Because that is, again, the whole thing with Buffy of like, it's metaphorical, but also in the context of the show, he is possessed. It is not just testosterone. It goes way beyond that. And pretty much any of us, if we were stripped to our animal instincts alone, would not be great people. So I can see where in the context of the show, we're able to move on. But if it were treated like all these things are as deep as they would be, like if this were Riverdale, this would have far more consequences that would be closer to the real life of how trauma-inducing this would be, traumatic this would be. But in the context of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I think we're allowed to give Xander forgiveness because he's not really him. Kind of like what we will, I guess it's a little spoilerly, but like, Angel versus Angelus. Again, same face, but in the context of the show and this supernatural, we know that is not him.
Part of the difference between Angel and Angelus for me is that Angelus is part of the reason Angel is the way he is because he's racked with guilt over what he did, and then Xander pulls this trick at the end, this not remembering, which is like LOL, which is like funny how they handle it because, but it's like there's a
lack of consequences.
Like there isn't a learning at all.
But I think there could be learning though, because, and this is me filling things in, but I like to think that informs Xander's future decisions. Like I feel like that maybe gives him, like maybe he is racked with guilt. And actually, he's obviously racked with guilt. Otherwise, he wouldn't pretend that he didn't remember.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So I like to think that it's a unpleasant, but a core memory nonetheless that does affect his choices in the future. We just don't necessarily see that. But we see him acting with gentility and chivalry. So we see his actions proving that he is a good guy.
That's true. I'm still not thrilled with.
It's still not a fun. It's still not a fun scene, for sure.
Yeah,
it is an uncomfortable scene, no matter however you turn it. My next note.
Oh, go ahead.
My next note though is Flutie walked so Snyder could run.
Oh, poor Principal Flutie. I love
Yeah.
him so much. He's just so. What does he say? I've seen some sick things, but a piggy, a little piggy. Oh, you were so gonna die. Oh my
from
God.
day one, you had an X on your back. And I do have, quickly going back to that other scene, I do have, at least Buffy recognizes it as assault. So it is not brushed off by Buffy. It is recognized. She comes in and is like, oh, well, he just tried to commit felony assault. And she does knock him out. So,
true.
So there is kind of some ultimate good triumphing over evil kind of stuff. So there's that. The cage comes in clutch.
Yeah, that cage was a good investment on Giles' part. The next scene after that one, I just thought it was silly. We don't know maybe there's a perfectly logical explanation, but this woman is just going for a casual nighttime walk through the woods with her baby. I'm glad she's safe. I'm glad they didn't eat her, but it was like, okay, cool, great.
Yeah, people make some odd choices.
This is a question about Principal Flutie. Did nobody hear him screaming at the top of his lungs? No, they're probably used to, they've heard weirder things at Sunnydale High School than somebody screaming in their office.
I guess. Yeah. Or was it after school, maybe? So most people were gone.
That's a good point too. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because the next scene we see is very late at night, so that would be a logical assumption to make. That
so
it's
yeah,
after.
We'll go with that. Yeah. It's after school, so there weren't people nearby.
Question answered.
I will say, quick story time. I have a soft spot for hyenas. So I do. I have a soft spot for hyenas, and I'll explain. So first of all, the comic book character Harley Quinn has pet hyenas. So there you go. There's that. Simple.
I didn't know that. That's neat.
One of them's named Bruce. At least in the movie Birds of Prey, he's named Bruce. And then the other part is, so I was playing a D&D campaign. Yes, I'm a full-fledged nerd. Thank you. I was playing a D&D campaign, and it was a character that I sort of was inspired by Harley Quinn. And at one point, I rolled a really bad roll. So what was supposed to be, I think I used my crossbow or something like that. It ended up completely missing, and it hit and killed a mama hyena who had pups with her. So I, in-game, took the pups with me and raised them as my own. And so for a time, my character had these pet hyenas.
This is okay. That story ends nicely though. You got some pet hyenas. That's
I know.
Good.
It's an awful beginning right there. But for a while, I had some pet hyenas, and
we had some pet hyenas. That's so
had
funny.
A deep affection for them. So there's my little Allie loves hyenas.
I have a note here to look up in the same way that I wanted to look up if hyenas are abnormally smart. Are hyenas? This episode assumes they are evil. I know there's like some predation there. I wanted to look up, are hyenas? Just more into their personalities. I looked up their laugh, and the laugh sounds very similar.
That part is
what we heard, which is really interesting.
I mean, if Lion King is to be believed, they are kind of the scourge of the animal kingdom. They are thought of as like dirty scavengers. It's kind of the impression that I get from them.
We need scavengers, though. That's
sure,
a good thing.
But people still shit on crows and stuff like that.
Oh, I was gonna say I like crows. Maybe I'm weird. Who knows? Maybe I'm the bad person.
No, crows bring you shiny things. My mom loves crows. My mom's a weird bird person. So,
when Buffy is chasing when she's trying to get the pack to follow her to the zoo, and she's rescuing this family that the pack has attacked. She does this sick Slayer stance on top of the car where she's like, look at me, come on, don't you want to reel? And it's just a badass Buffy moment that I love.
Heck yeah. After that name thing, which is awful. My question, that same scene, continuing on in that same scene, how small is Sunnydale?
I wrote this question down too, Allie. Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because I have a note about this. I wasn't going to bring it up because I feel like I've been the Debbie Downer on this episode, but in the Bronze, Willow references Xander being in a bad mood on the way back, on the bus. No, she says on the bus ride back. So at some point, they have decided that it is far enough that they need a bus to get from the zoo back to where it's school, wherever they're going. But it looks like Buffy just I don't know. I'm suspending my disbelief.
Because she
But I am
runs
glad.
on foot. Because I guess we can assume that Giles and Willow drove to the zoo. Because
That
he
has
has
to
a
be what we
car and
assume,
we
right.
see his car and stuff. Not yet, but like we will.
And the timing of it, we have to
Right.
assume that they couldn't have it. There's no way they could have outrun
Right.
Buffy.
So she tracks them down and then has them follow her on foot all the way to the zoo.
I feel validated in my note taking. Thank you, Allie.
Because trust me, my mom is from a small town. Like, I have seen small towns that maybe you really could run from the library to the school or something like that. But towns that small don't have a zoo.
Zoos themselves are not. Their footprint is large. They have animals that need a lot of space.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So, like, Sunnydale would not have a zoo. Maybe their county would have a zoo or something. But yeah, I'm totally with you. Clearly, Sunnydale just maybe they just had like somebody rich live in that town and like they funded the zoo or something like that.
It was a pet project.
But you're right
for
about
that
the
billionaire
bus.
who lived there or something.
They clearly it constituted some kind of like quicker transportation. Anyway, is someone keeping track of how many times Giles gets knocked out?
I know, poor Giles. He's savage here in this exchange that he has with the zookeeper when he says, "This is just such a good example of I don't know, his wit really comes with an edge to it." He says, "How terribly frustrating for you that a bunch of school children could accomplish, but you could not."
Yes.
Man.
Yeah. And he did.
Are you trying to confront him or are you making him cry? What is your goal here, Giles? Man.
He does have a mean streak. And I did have that thought earlier in the episode of like, oh, that guy must be pissed. That is not who that was supposed to happen to.
Oh, you idiot. Man, you suck at your job.
Okay, but then when he performs the spell or whatever, it's so quick. It's like one sentence. So I was just like, okay, all right, that was quick.
He also has no reason. I'm thrilled that he didn't kill Giles and Willow, but I'm just thinking cynically from his perspective. I don't think that he had a great reason to not kill, if not Willow, then certainly Giles.
You're right. He could have at least killed one of them because he did still need one of them to be there to commit the act of violence or act of aggression or whatever that the spell needed.
Oh,
but he only needs one.
You're right.
So he definitely could have killed Giles because he was strong.
I'm glad he didn't. Maybe it was more efficient to not. I don't know. Who knows? Very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some things that don't happen just because, like, you can't kill Giles.
We can't kill
episode
Giles.
6.
In the next scene, Buffy's pink skirt and the superhero shirt she's wearing are everything.
Yep. Fashion icon, faux show. And I do love Xander getting called out by Giles. Like, I don't remember reading any memory loss in the books. And Xander's just, shoot me, stuff me, mount me.
yeah. When he pretends to not have done anything, and I did
write down. I guess his guilt is punishment.
Very true. That end quote from Giles there. Your secret dies with me. So good. What a guy.
Because then he's not the only one. Because that does mean that Giles is left knowing exactly what he did and knowing that he knows.
Yeah, true. Good point.
So, and we do see him going out of his way to be sweet to the girls after everything he said. So I think if we're looking at a scoreboard, I think he ends up still on the right side.
Yeah. Okay. This is helped me like this episode a little more. I don't know if I think what I don't love about this episode and Teacher's Pet, which are both Xander focused episodes. I think what I don't love is like the learning that he does as a character. I didn't think that he did any learning after this episode. Your explanation has helped me. I think where I still land is that I don't love that his character development isn't because of him making the right choice or what. It's because he underwent a spell and did things and then got saved and then learned from it. Like, I don't love that part of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's more of these things were acted on him rather than him in a situation and making a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like he didn't break the spell himself through sheer
Right.
will or something like that. I get what you mean.
But that speaks to this idea in Buffy where that he's a human working through these mystical forces. So
Well, and that does kind
you
of
know,
end up being his role, sort of. You know, he ends up getting attacked a lot. He ends up spells on him and, you know,
mhm,
and like mind controlled and stuff like that. So that also may kind of speak to Xander's weak will, weak mind. I think he's very strong of heart, but
mhm.
the fact that, like you said, a lot of this stuff happens to him. Now we're turning into sounds like victim blaming, but that's not what I mean. Yeah, or just the idea like with hypnosis, you kind of have to have like a willing mind. Am I sort of
Mhm.
making sense? Cool.
And what he learns and what he goes through does certainly, it helps the group overall. Like
Yeah.
as a Scooby gang, they get
And
stronger,
I do agree. Yeah, they
including
do
Xander.
evolve as a group. And I think it's third season. There's a Xander focused show where I think he has some really great growth. Which is
Well,
a
and
very
that's the one that I
different.
thought of.
Oh, okay.
That's the one that I thought of where I was like, this is an example of a Xander focused episode where he is going to make some choices and he thrives, he crushes it. And then there's like this one where it's,
That is a really fascinating episode. I think it's a really fun thing that they did. Kind of
so
having
good.
a
Oh my
whole
God.
episode that's like a meanwhile.
Yeah. Listeners, just
You
wait.
do.
We're
You
so
just
excited for that
wait.
one.
Like season 3 is for real my fave.
It's so
I love it all, but
good.
of course I have my favorites. All right, Nicholas. I think that about does it for this episode. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again for our next episode, where we'll discuss season 1, episode 7, Angel. Things get steamy.
And if you're just, oh my God, yeah, Angel. Oh, I love this episode. Oh, it's so good. Kiddos, if you are too excited to wait until our next episode to chat, send us an email at tabularasabpod@gmail.com. Alexander Louise Fresh, where can people find you on social media?
Well,
can I say your full name recording like that? I hope so. I
you
just
sure
did.
sure did. It is my name. I do not deny that. You can find me, dear listeners, at daughterpick, DAUGHTERPICK, on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me at Future Black Cat on TikTok. And if you'd like to send a few dollars my way and learn more about my journey as an artist, you can become a member at buymeacoffee.com/Allie Press. That's ALLIEPRESS.
And luckily, all of those social media handles are going to be in the description. Allie, I hope you have an absolutely stunning evening ahead of you.
As well, my friend. Make proud choices.
Bye.
Bye. Tabula Rasa Bitches is hosted by Allie Press and Nick Mercer, with music by Inflaton Cult, artwork by Charlotte Fleming Design, and consultation by Evo Terra.